Okay, so picture this for a second. You are standing on a wooden dock.
Right.
But it is not just any dock. The wood is literally rotting under your feet. The air is, it's so thick with humidity, it feels like you're breathing hot soup.
Yeah, just completely miserable.
Exactly. And the smell, honestly, the smell is probably something you'd need like years of therapy to forget. It's this wild mix of mud, unwashed bodies, and spices.
Cloves, pepper, mace.
Yes. Spices that are worth more than their weight in gold.
It is absolute sensory overload in the worst possible way. We're talking about Batavia in the year 1634. Modern-day Jakarta.
Right.
And this isn't just a trading post, you know. This is the beating heart of the United East India Company, the VOC.
The VOC, I mean, we talk a lot about big tech today, Apple, Amazon, Google, but if you adjusted for inflation and looked at actual power...
Oh, they don't even compare.
Right. The VOC makes those guys look like a neighborhood lemonade stand. They had their own army, their own currency.
The power to wage war.
Yeah, they were essentially a corporate nation state.
Exactly. And Batavia is where all that unimaginable wealth just violently collides with desperate poverty. It's a total pressure cooker.
And sitting right there in the harbor, just looming over everything, is the Saradam.
The Saradam. An Indiaman galleon.
And when you say galleon, I feel like people immediately picture Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right, something swashbuckling and romantic.
Yeah, with clean sails and dramatic music. But this ship, it sounds more like a floating tenement building.
That is a very apt description, actually. It's essentially a wooden wall rising out of the water. It's dark, it's cramped, and it reeks of tar and fear.
And they're preparing for the wagon lines.
Yes, the wagon lines, that's the 8-month voyage back to Amsterdam. It was the only route that was supposedly safe.
Though safe in 1634 is a pretty relative term.
Very relative. Safe just meant you might not die of scurvy or a pirate attack. It wasn't a guarantee.
So the tension is just thick. Everyone is on edge. The governor general is there. The soldiers are marching around. Crates are being loaded. And then the scene just snaps.
It completely shifts genres.
It really does. It stops being this gritty historical drama and turns straight into a horror movie, because this figure appears on top of a stack of crates.
This is our inciting incident, a leper.
Right.
Now you have to remember, in this era, leprosy isn't just a medical condition, it is a spiritual sentence. You are unclean.
You're the Walking Dead.
Exactly. People are absolutely terrified of contagion.
So he's wrapped in these gray rags, bandages covering his face. But here's the kicker. He has no tongue.
It's been brutally cut out.
Cut out. And yet, this man stands there and projects a voice that just booms across the entire marketplace.
And it's a prophecy. He screams that the Saradam carries sin. He says the ship will never reach Amsterdam.
Never reach Amsterdam.
And he names its true master. He calls him the Lord of Hidden Things, a figure known as Old Tom.
And then, just to make sure everyone is thoroughly traumatized for the trip, he catches on fire.
He literally bursts into flames.
Spontaneous combustion.
Well, in the eyes of the crowd, absolutely. I mean, we might look at it with modern eyes and think, oh, some kind of chemical trick.
Right, phosphorus or something.
Exactly. But to the people standing on that dock, they're watching a man erupt in hellfire. And he doesn't scream.
That's the creepiest part.
He doesn't thrash around at all. He just stands there burning. And he locks eyes with one specific man in the crowd, our protagonist, Arent Hayes.
Just stares at him.
Stares right at Arent until he finally collapses and dies.
I mean, that is quite the way to start an 8-month boat trip.
It sets the stakes immediately. This is not just your standard whodunit. It is a locked room mystery where the room is a wooden ship in the middle of the ocean.
And the prime suspect is a literal demon.
Precisely.
So buckle up, everyone. Today we are diving deep into The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton.
Such a fantastic choice.
Again.
Turton is known for these incredibly complex puzzle box narratives.
Right.
If you've read his previous book, The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, you know exactly what I mean. He loves to take a genre, completely shatter it, and glue it back together in a weird shape.
And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out that shape. We're going to unpack all the layers of this historical mystery.
There are a lot of layers.
So many. We're going to look at how he flips the classic Sherlock Holmes trope entirely on its head and really dig into the mechanics of these impossible crimes.
Because at its core, this book is obsessed with the line between superstition and logic.
And how incredibly dangerous it is when that line gets blurred.
Especially when it's weaponized by powerful people.
Exactly. Let's start with the cast of characters, because Turton does something really interesting with the whole detective dynamic. Usually you have the genius, the Holmes figure.
Right, the one who runs around solving everything.
Yeah, and then you have the muscle, or the sidekick, the Watson, who mostly just follows along and says things like, "Good heavens, Holmes."
The brain and the brawn. It's a classic setup.
But Turton keeps those archetypes and completely changes the power dynamic. Our Holmes figure is Samuel Pipps.
Sammy. And he is arguably the greatest detective in the world. He's that guy who can taste wine and tell you not just which vineyard it came from.
But who stepped on the grapes?
Exactly. He notices the tiniest splinters, the dust, the intonation in someone's voice.
But there is a massive problem.
Huge problem. The Governor General, John Hahn, has arrested him.
And we don't even know why at the start.
We have no idea. But Sammy is in chains. He's thrown into this dark, filthy cell in the absolute bottom of the ship, the bilge.
So the genius is effectively blind. He can't go to the crime scenes. He can't interrogate the suspects. He's literally sitting in the dark.
Which leaves us with Arent Hayes, the Watson.
And Arent is, well, he's not your typical bumbling sidekick. He is a tank of a human being.
They literally call him the bear. He's huge, he's scarred, he's got a broken nose, a bitten ear. He's this mercenary who has spent his entire life just using his fists to keep Sammy safe.
But internally, he's incredibly insecure.
He really is. He thinks he's stupid. He actually calls himself a dog who just needs a master.
I found that so compelling as a reader. You have this giant guy who could snap anyone on the ship in half, but he's terrified of having to solve a puzzle.
It's a brilliant literary device. By locking up the genius detective, Turton forces the muscle to actually use his brain.
It completely raises the stakes.
It really does, because Arent knows he's out of his depth. He's trying to be the investigator, but he doesn't believe in himself. He has to be Sammy's eyes and ears.
Running back and forth to that nasty cell just to report clues.
It's like trying to perform complex surgery via telephone instructions.
And Arent carries this heavy personal burden, too.
Yeah.
He has a physical scar on his wrist.
A childhood scar.
Yeah, and it exactly matches the symbol of the demon, Old Tom.
Let's talk about Old Tom, because this isn't just some generic red guy with pitchforks. This is a very specific, localized piece of folklore. The mythology here is incredibly deep. Back in the United Provinces, about 30 years ago, there was this massive wave of terror. A symbol started appearing on houses and churches.
An eye with a tail.
Yes, and the legend says Old Tom is a demon who bargains. He whispers to people in the dark.
The whisper. That concept honestly gave me chills.
It acts like a psychological virus. The demon offers you your heart's greatest desire, whatever you want most. Money, revenge, power.
But in exchange, you owe him a favor.
And the favor is never a good thing.
And the really scary part is that everyone on the ship has something they desperately want.
Oh, absolutely.
You have the sailors who are paid peanuts and treated like absolute dirt. You have the Governor General who wants a seat on the ruling council.
Jan Han?
Yeah. And you have his wife, Sara, who just wants to escape her abusive marriage.
So it's this incredibly fertile ground for a deal with the devil.
Yeah.
And just as the Sardam set sail, that symbol, the eye with the tail, unfurls on the mainsail.
It's huge.
It is a massive declaration of war. It tells everyone that someone on the ship is loyal to Old Tom.
So the voyage officially begins, and almost immediately things start going wrong. But not just bad luck wrong.
No.
Impossible wrong.
We need to introduce Sander Kurz right here. He's a predicant.
A preacher. But he's also a former witch finder.
Exactly. And he's the one who lays out the rules of engagement for the passengers. He says Old Tom will perform 3 unholy miracles to prove his absolute dominance before the real slaughter begins.
I love a good ticking clock in a mystery. It gives the whole story such a rigid structure.
You're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly. Let's walk through these miracles, because they are really the core of the mystery. Miracle number 1, the slaughter in the night.
This happens fairly early on. The ship is out at sea, and suddenly this phantom ship appears in the distance.
The 8th lantern.
Yes, it glows with this eerie red light. It looks exactly like a ghost ship.
And while everyone is distracted by that glowing ship, something horrifying happens right on the deck of the Sardam.
The livestock, the cows, the pigs, the chickens.
Yeah.
This is the food source for hundreds of people for an 8-month voyage.
Right.
In a split second, they are all slaughtered, just gutted.
And when we say split second, we really need to be clear about the physics of the scene here. Arent and Sara Wessel, that's the Governor General's wife, they were standing maybe 20 paces away.
Very close.
It was completely silent. There were no screaming animals, no splashing blood, no footsteps running away.
Just dead silence. And then carnage. And the symbol of Old Tom is found painted right there in the blood.
It totally defies logic.
It really does.
Yeah.
How do you silently kill a dozen large animals in the dark without making a single sound or being seen by two people standing right there?
It forces the characters, and obviously you as the reader, to think, okay, maybe this actually is a demon.
It certainly feels supernatural at that point. But then we get miracle number 2, the theft of the folly.
The folly. This is essentially the MacGuffin of the political plot.
Completely. In
Mhm.
1634, the biggest problem for sailors wasn't pirates. It was calculating longitude.
Right, latitude is easy with the sun.
But longitude was a pure guessing game. And if you guessed wrong, you hit a reef and everyone died.
So the Governor General, Jan Han, claims to have this secret device, the folly, and it solves the longitude problem.
It's his golden ticket. If he brings this device to Amsterdam, he becomes one of the Gentlemen 17, the ruling council of the VOC,
So he guards it with his life. He keeps it locked in the gunpowder store.
which is a fortress within a fortress. It has exactly one solid door. There is an armed guard, Captain Drecht, standing right in front of it the entire time.
And the object itself is not small.
No, it's a heavy, cumbersome crate. It literally takes 4 grown men to lift it.
Okay, so we have a locked room, a guarded door,
Mm.
and a massive, heavy object.
And yet, when they finally open the door, it's just gone. The room is completely empty.
And burnt into the floorboards, right where the box stood, is the eye with the tail.
Again, there's no way in and no way out. It is like a magic trick.
But the tension really snaps with miracle number 3.
The big one.
The murder of the Governor General himself, Jan Han.
Can we just take a second to talk about Jan Han?
Yeah.
Because he is a real piece of work.
Oh, he is awful.
He's the true villain of the backstory. He's a complete tyrant. He physically beats his wife, Sara. He's psychologically abusive to his daughter, Leah.
He runs the ship with an iron fist.
But as these miracles start happening, he really starts to crumble. He's terrified
Yeah.
because he knows, or at least he thinks he knows, that Old Tom is coming for him specifically.
So he goes into full lockdown mode. He retreats to his personal cabin. He locks the heavy wooden door from the inside.
There are armed guards stationed outside in the hallway.
And yet he is found dead, stabbed directly through the heart.
Let's look at the crime scene itself. The door is securely locked from the inside. The windows are sealed shut. There's no chimney for someone to climb down.
A true locked room puzzle.
Correct. And here is the detail that just drives the bills. Aren't absolutely crazy. They find a dagger in the room, presumably the murder weapon, right?
Right.
But the handle of the dagger is physically too wide to fit through any of the cracks in the walls or the floorboards.
So if the killer was outside the room, they couldn't have pushed the knife through a crack.
Exactly.
But if the killer was inside the room, how on earth did they escape a locked cabin with guards outside?
It is the ultimate impossibility.
Yeah.
And it just breaks the crew. At this point, the sailors are completely ready to mutiny.
They believe the Governor General has cursed them all.
The captain, Kralls, is completely losing control. The ship is a floating powder keg.
And right in the middle of this absolute chaos, Arent is trying to hold the investigation together. But he's not doing it alone anymore.
No, he has a partner now, Sara Wessel.
I really love Sara. She's introduced as this typical noblewoman, seemingly very delicate, but she's actually the smartest person in the room.
Maybe even smarter than Sammy in some practical ways.
Definitely. She's a healer. She uses actual science and logic in a world that relies heavily on leeches and prayer.
And she is a survivor above all else. She's been surviving Jan Han's abuse for years. She teams up with Arent because she wants answers. And honestly, she sees Arent as a powerful tool she can use to get them.
They really have this great dynamic, the giant scarred soldier and the brilliant noblewoman. And they go down into the cargo hold to investigate.
And the cargo hold is a total nightmare. It is a literal labyrinth of crates. It's pitch dark. It's rat-infested.
And down there in the dark, they find a church.
A shrine, really. Someone has built an altar to Old Tom right there in the maze.
Okay.
And they even find someone dressed up as the leper hiding in the shadows.
So this is huge. This confirms there is a human element to all of this. A supernatural demon doesn't need to sew a costume.
Exactly. It strongly suggests a human conspiracy. And then there's the book, the Demonologica.
This is the scary book carried by Isabel, the preacher's ward. It's essentially a field guide to demons.
But here's the twist. They find a fake version of it in another passenger's cabin. Viscountess Dalphane. This fake book acts like a script for the whole voyage. It literally has drawings of the miracles dated before they even happen. It predicts the murder of Jan Han.
And the name on the passenger manifest, Viscountess Dalphane, Arent realizes it's an anagram.
Emily de Havilland, a woman who was supposedly destroyed by the witch-finders 30 years ago.
This is the very first solid thread that connects the current terror on the ship to the past crimes of Jan Han.
It's all about revenge.
The climax of the voyage really hits when the massive storm comes. The ship is badly damaged, they're taking on water fast.
And they run aground on a mysterious island.
And the island looks exactly like the strange drawing in the fake Daemonologica. The prophecy is fulfilled. The Sardam did not reach Amsterdam.
Now we are thrust straight into Lord of the Flies territory. The crew fully mutinies. They declare their loyalty to Old Tom.
They start hunting the wealthy passengers.
Isabel, the preacher's ward, goes full fanatic.
Yeah.
She starts trying to burn the survivors at the stake to supposedly cleanse them of the demon.
It's pure chaos. But this is where we have to pivot in our discussion. Because up until now, Turton has done a masterclass in making you, the reader, believe in the supernatural.
He really has. The impossible crimes, the prophecy, the creepy voice in the dark.
But this is a deep dive, and we need to look at the actual mechanics of what happened. We need to pull off the mask.
We do. Because the big twist, the grand reveal of the entire book, is that there is no demon. Old Tom does not exist.
It is all a massive human conspiracy.
Cool.
So who is the mastermind?
It's Christie Jens, the flirtatious widow who seems so harmless the entire time. She is actually Emily de Havilland.
She has spent 30 years planning this revenge.
But she didn't do it alone.
And this is the reveal that genuinely hurts.
Samuel Pipps.
Sammy, the hero, the Sherlock Holmes of the story. Our best friend in the world. He was in on it.
He was the main co-conspirator.
I remember reading this and just feeling so gutted for Arent. The whole time, Sammy is sitting in that cell, pretending to help Arent solve the mystery, but he's actually the one pulling the strings.
It is a profound betrayal. Sammy used Arent. He used Arent's deep fear, his loyalty, even his childhood trauma about the scar on his wrist, just to sell the lie.
But why? Why did they need Arent to investigate?
They needed an independent, trusted investigator to validate the mystery. If Arent believed it, then Jan Han would be terrified.
But why go to these crazy lengths? Why not just walk up and stab Jan Han in his sleep and be done with it?
Because it wasn't just about his death. It was about psychological torture. Jan Han, along with the preacher Sander and a few others, actually created the myth of Old Tom 30 years ago.
Wait, so the Governor General invented the monster?
Yes, they invented the demon to frame wealthy rival families, have them executed for witchcraft, and then steal their land and money.
That is incredibly twisted.
Christie and Sammy were both victims of that original horrific purge. Their families were destroyed. So they wanted to turn Jan Han's own creation against him.
They wanted him to truly believe the demon he invented had come back from hell to collect the debt.
They wanted him to live his final days in absolute paralyzing terror before he finally died.
It's poetic justice, but it is incredibly dark.
It's pure psychological warfare.
Okay, so we have the motive. Now I need to understand the methods, because I am still stuck on these miracles.
Right.
If there is no demon, how did they kill all that livestock instantly and silently?
It was a very elaborate magic trick. It relied heavily on timing and accomplices. The leper you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, the burning guy.
Well, the burning guy was a trick. But on the ship, the leper was just a costume. It was worn by different people at different times, hired hands, maybe even Christie herself at one point.
Okay.
The slaughter of the animals wasn't instantaneous at all. It was done by several men hiding in the pens. They timed the killing to perfectly coincide with the distraction of the eighth lantern appearing in the distance.
And the silence.
Silence was likely just sheer luck, or it was an exaggeration for the terrified witnesses, Arent and Sara, who were so shocked by the visual aftermath that their brains filled in the blanks.
Wow. Okay, what about miracle number 2? The folly. How do you move a heavy box out of a locked, guarded room?
This one is pure logistics. The folly was never one solid block of wood and metal. It was specifically designed to be dismantled.
Oh.
The conspirators, who were actually guards that had been heavily paid off, they just went into the room, took the machine apart piece by piece.
I've been there.
They hid the pieces in empty water kegs and literally rolled them out the door right past the captain's nose.
So while everyone is frantically looking for a giant heavy crate, the object is just being rolled away in standard barrels. Classic misdirection.
Exactly. And finally, the big one, the murder of Jan Han.
The impossible locked room.
The candle snuffer.
The candle snuffer. I love this solution so much because it's so incredibly mundane.
It is brilliant in its simplicity. So you have a locked room. Arent is obsessing over the solid walls, the locked door, the lack of windows. But he completely forgets to look up.
It's ceiling.
Right. Above Jan Han's lavish cabin is the gunpowder store. The conspirators went into the store and bored a very small hole in the floorboards.
Which leads directly down into the ceiling of the cabin below.
Exactly. And they used a candle snuffer. You know, one of those really long wooden poles with a little bell on the end.
Yeah.
Used to put out high candles in churches.
Yeah.
They modified it. They took off the bell and attached a very thin, very sharp blade to the end of the pole. They waited until Jan Han was fast asleep in his bed directly below the hole.
And then from the room above, they just thrust the pole down through the tiny hole.
Stabbed him in the heart and immediately pulled the pole back up into the gunpowder store.
That is why the handle of the dagger found in the room didn't need to fit through the hole. Only the thin blade of the snuffer did.
Exactly. The dagger they found on the floor was just a plant. It was placed there beforehand by a bribed servant or dropped through a larger gap somewhere else just to confuse the investigation. It was never the actual murder weapon.
It's literally death from above. It's so simple. But because everyone was utterly convinced they were looking for a ghost or a demon, nobody thought to look for a tiny hole in the ceiling.
And that perfectly illustrates the main theme of the book. Superstition blinds you to reality. Logic, Arendt's logic, sees the physical mechanics.
Arent is the one who finally figures this out, right?
Yes, he looks up at the ceiling and sees the tiny patch in the wood. It's his ultimate moment of triumph. He finally proved to himself that he's not just a dumb dog. He is a real detective.
But his big triumph is so bittersweet because the answer means his best friend is a murderer.
And this leads right into the resolution of the book, which is fascinatingly morally gray.
Very gray. Arent confronts Sammy and Christy on the island. They have caused a massive shipwreck. People have died. Innocent sailors, passengers, the religious fanatics.
That's a bloodbath.
But Arent doesn't arrest them.
He can't, really. I mean, the ship is destroyed. The formal law of the VOC is gone. But more deeply than that, he decides that their form of justice was actually valid.
He justifies it.
He realizes Jan Han was a monster who actively used the law to destroy innocent families. The official law would never have punished Jan Han because in Batavia, he was the law.
So they make a deal instead.
They split the massive treasure they stole from Jan Han. The remaining survivors, Arent, Sara, her daughter Leah, Sammy, and Christy, they all decide to just vanish.
They let the rest of the world believe they died in the tragic shipwreck.
They take the money and sail off to start entirely new lives.
It's a complete vigilante ending. It forces you, as the reader, to really ask yourself, are we okay with this? I mean, Sammy and Christy are mass killers.
But they killed a tyrant. It's the Robin Hood archetype pushed to its absolute extreme. They burn down the entire castle just to kill the corrupt king. And Arent decides he can live with that. He accepts that the world is messy.
And what about Sara?
Sara honestly gets the best ending of all of them. She is finally free. She's incredibly rich. She has her daughter Sace. She goes from being literal property to being an equal partner.
I want to circle back to something you mentioned way earlier, the subversion of the Holmes and Watson trope. We see Arent grow so much, he really comes into his own. But what about Sammy? Does he change at all?
That is a really great question. Sammy is actually a static character in a lot of ways. He is always the smartest person in the room. He is always wildly arrogant.
Even when he gets caught by Arent, he's not really sorry, is he?
Not at all. He basically tells Arent, I did what had to be done. He doesn't have a redemption arc so much as a revelation arc. The mask just slips, and we see who he truly is.
He's the anti-hero. Or maybe just a really charming villain.
I think he's a man who firmly believes the ends justify the means. And in the brutal, unforgiving world of the 17th century, maybe he's right.
There's also this really interesting commentary on the power of narrative running through the whole story. The whole Old Tom myth, it was just a story. Jan Han told a scary story to steal power.
And then Christy told an even scarier story to take that power away.
That is the big takeaway of this book for me. Why does this 400-year-old fictional mystery matter to us today? Because we live in a world defined by conflicting narratives. Fake news, conspiracy theories, viral panic.
Turton is showing us that reality is completely malleable. If you can make people believe in a demon, you can control their every action.
Jan Han thought he was completely safe because he had armed guards and heavy iron locks. But he forgot that he was living in a story that he didn't write anymore.
Precisely. The person who controls the narrative controls the ship.
I also want to give a quick shout out to the setting again before we wrap up. The wagon lines. The book does such a phenomenal job of describing the sheer mind-numbing boredom and the absolute terror of sailing in that era.
It's just hours and hours of boredom punctuated by moments of sheer panic. And the claustrophobia. You're stuck on a wooden box with these people. You can't just walk away. It heightens every single emotion. A minor grudge on land is annoying.
But a grudge on a ship is deadly.
Exactly. And the historical research, I know Turton apologizes in the author's note for some historical inaccuracies, but it feels very authentic.
He captures the texture of the time perfectly, the dirt, the rigid class hierarchy, the total precariousness of life. He gets the feeling right, even if he fudges how the rigging of the sails worked.
Oh, one detail I absolutely loved was the wine tasting scene.
Ah, yes, at the very beginning.
Right. Sammy is showing off, tasting the sediment in a glass of wine to identify exactly where it's from. It feels like this arrogant little party trick. But then, at the very end of the book, it becomes a crucial clue.
Right, because he realizes that he and Jan Han were drugged, and he figures it out because of the strange sediment in the cup.
It's a perfect example of Chekhov's gun. If you put a wine-tasting detective in the first act, he better taste some obscure poison in the third act.
It shows that Sammy is literally always observing. Even when he's the villain orchestrating the chaos, he's still the detective at heart.
He simply can't turn it off. It's his nature.
So, final verdict on The Devil in the Dark Water. It's a locked room mystery, it's a psychological thriller, it's a historical drama.
It is a total genre bender. It's ambitious, it's loud, and it's messy in the absolute best way possible.
And it leaves you with a lot to chew on regarding the nature of justice. Is justice just blindly following the rules of society, or is justice making sure the bad guy pays no matter what lines you have to cross?
That's the ultimate question Arent has to answer on that beach, and he chooses the latter.
Well, I, for one, am incredibly glad I am not on a rotting wooden ship in 1634. I will happily stick to my air conditioning and my GPS. Thank you very much.
A very wise choice. And, just watch out for anyone offering you a bargain in the dark.
Especially if they have a booming voice but no tongue.
Indeed.
That's it for this deep dive. We've unpacked the mystery, solved the impossible crimes, and hopefully escaped the curse. But before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Oh, I like this.
We talked all about how Jan Han created Old Tom to steal land, and Kreese G used him for revenge. But think about how we do this in our own lives. How often do we invent our own personal Old Toms? The invisible demons or scapegoats we blame for our own bad habits, our failures, or the toxic situations we refuse to leave. We tell ourselves a story that we are cursed or that things are impossible to change just so we don't have to face the terrifying fact that the power and the blame is entirely in our own hands.
Oh, wow. That is a heavy truth. The real demon is just our own refusal to take accountability.
Exactly. Something to think about next time you feel like you're trapped in a locked room. Until next time, keep looking for the mechanics behind the miracle.
See you in the next deep dive. Goodbye.